my Ice Cream here again, and it's time to take a look at Dreadfleet. Now, if you have been looking out in my channel, you've probably noticed that I have uploaded a couple of games. But I thought it's time to actually take a look at the miniatures themselves and the game. Now, what is Dreadfleet? Well, it's Warhammer Fantasy at the seas. It's basically a pirate game, however, it was only released a few hundred copies by Games Workshop a couple of years ago. It's very difficult to come by. Now, you can get that off Amazon, pretty expensive though, probably at eBay, but like I said, very expensive. So if you get a hold of one of them, keep it. It's very valuable. And what do you get in the entire set then? Well, everything you see here basically. You get 10 ships, lots of tokens, lots of islands, and this seascape here. It's actually made silk, also kind of fabric. And you get that in the set itself, which is incredibly handy because I'm a horrible painter and terrain maker, so you get all of that sort of stuff. And it's kind of somewhere in between a war game and a board game, so you have some aspects of a board game like cards, but it's still a war game because you move freely with miniatures. So now, what are the contents themselves? Well, like I said, we have warships, we have tokens, we have measure tools, you have movement tools, you have lots of fun things here. But let's start off by taking a look at the ships. This is the evil side. On the other hand, they're all pirates, so you can't really call one side evil and one side good. These guys are basically undead. Because you're not fighting in the ocean, you're fighting in some kind of a netherworld, kind of like Davion's Locker, I guess you could say, River Gyal, or Styx, whatever you want to call it. And these guys are basically the ones who roam that region. They're all undead. So this ship is called the Black Kraken. It is used by a Chaos Dwarf. The next ship is the Curse of Zendri. And that is, let's see here, a Tomb King ship. We also have literally a rotting fish. And that is a Skaven ship, surprise, surprise. We also have a flying ship, inspiration from Flying Dutchman. Nah. It's literally a ghost ship. And then you have the flagship on the entire Dreadfleet, the evil guys, in other words, the dead guys, the Bloody Reaver. And then the good guys, or well, they're alive at least, they aren't really good. So, the fleet, the flagship is the Heldenhammer. Then you have the Dwarven Ironclad. The other ship is an Imperial ship. That was stolen by a pirate. Yeah. This is the Ironclad, which is called Grimnir's Thunder, a Dwarven ship. This is the ship, the Swordfish, hence the sword in front. And this is a kind of magical ship that I messed up when I built it. Like, see, the genie in the back is not supposed to be that far off. It's kind of a magical Arabian ship. That ship, I'm not entirely certain which genre you put it in. And I'm really close to the wall now. This is a High Elf ship. So, the things you see in the front are auxiliaries, but if you were to compare the ships, since there is no point kind of thing in this game, you have no point limit, but it does balance out tactically. Like, on average, I think these guys are a little bit weaker than those guys, but fate cards balance that out, and I'll get to that later. So, tactically, what are we looking at here? Yeah, well, each ship have, each fleet has a kind of flagship, a man-of-war, a resilient ship, a heavy offensive ship, a fire counter ship, and a surprise attack ship. So the man-of-wars, the flagships, are these two guys. They are very strong, very resilient, and powerful in all sorts of matter. And then you have the resilient ships, the ghost ship, and the Grimnir's Thunder. Grimnir's Thunder has very powerful armor, so it's very unlikely to get hit and damaged. This ship, on the other hand, is half real, so it's very difficult to hit. And then we have the heavy assault counter ships. It's the dead fish. Of course, you would expect a dead fish to be dangerous. However, if you look at the lines around it, it has full of cannons. Those things ignore the enemy's armor, which is very useful against this ship. And on the other side, we have the swordfish. As sword or saw blade, so I can get a good look at it here. It's incredibly handy to cut the hides of the enemy ships. You can literally ram them and tear them apart. Then we have the fire ships. On the evil guy side, or well, the Dreadfleet, as this is called, the other one is called the Grand Alliance. We have the Curse of Zendri, which can kind of focus light into that crystal up there and fire away a beam of fire. The other ship is a magical ship. As you can see, the Flaming Scimitar. It has a fire genie on the other side, and it can literally die down upon the enemy and set them on fire. Lovely stuff. We have the High Elf ship, which is a surprise attack ship. It's incredibly fast. And it can also damage the crew instead of the ship itself. And the other one is this one. However, it's kind of interesting because it is submersible. So in other words, you remove this thing from play, and you add this card instead. So it's underwater. It's kind of like a submarine. And then you can move it around however you feel like it, and attack wherever you want, which gives you a huge tactical edge. And then these miniships you see around it, those are cogs, or auxiliaries. Let's focus in on this one here. This is a Dreadfleet cog. This is kind of a mini ship. Now this one has a golden sail because it comes from this ship. These things are mini ships that you kind of canoes you kind of release from the main ship, and then they walk around and collect treasure tokens. They're usually used in the scenarios in the rulebook. And I've painted all the sails to match the corresponding ship that owns them. Like this thing has a blue sail, that thing has a skin painted sail, and this ship doesn't actually have any cog. And that the Bloody Reaver has a black sail. Now these guys, on the other hand, have a little bit more interesting cogs. You have their, of course, normal ships. This is the Heldenhammer cog with a red sail. You have the Dwarven ship, which actually launches air balloons that flies around, kind of ignoring the terrain. And then you have the other ship, black sails. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, very professional video, as you can tell. And then we have the Flaming Scimitar, kind of bleached bone, white sails. But then the High Elf ship has dragons instead. And that's pretty cool in my opinion. Those things can actually dive down and burn the enemy. You can also pull fate cards, in other words, random events. That causes you to get fire-filled cogs, they kind of explode in the enemy's face, or send assassins after them. I'll pull a couple of cards to show the examples. And you also get these things. These are treasure tokens. In some scenarios you're supposed to collect these, and that's what the cogs are for. You can also collect them with your ships, but it's very difficult. And then we have 12 dice. And one of them are red because you have when you open fire upon a ship, you basically roll 1 dice for each cannon point. For example, the Heldenhammer has the most cannons in the entire game, gets 6 dice. However, the ship itself has around 180 guns, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have exactly 6 cannons. So we also have some other fun things, like this thing. It determines the wind, because if you have a sail warship, then the wind can really screw you over. On the other side, we have a vortex, which kind of is sucking up everything else around it. And you have these things. They are used to turn your ships, because you are maneuvering ships and not like the normal movement. So let's say you have to move a little bit. I think this ship in particular is 3 inches. Then you can make a turn. So you basically touch like that edge, move like that, and then you have to move another 3 inches before you move it again. Turn it again, I mean. You also get this measuring stick. Kind of a bony looking. Everything that you need comes in the box. And this thing turns as well. It measures up to 18 inches, because that's everything you have to measure. The longest firing range is 18 inches, so that's very handy. You also get lots of shipwreck pieces, terrain pieces, and all sorts of cool stuff. By the way, there will be a lot of kind of pictures, still pics in the end of the video. So we have the warships also have corresponding cards to show you how it works. For example, this ship, the Curse's Ender here, not my personal favorite, has this, and you can read about what special rules it has, what kind of what stats are, and you can also read like hull, speed, and this is where you attach damage cards. And these are orders, because you can issue special orders every turn. And you have fire as you bears, in other words, fire when the enemy gets close, kind of an Overwatch reaction. You have repair, you can turn, a lot of stuff things to there. And this game has a lot of maneuver to it. For example, you don't want to crash into a rock or an island, because that's really bad. And the same thing over here. Here's the Flaming Scimitar. Here's a card for it. You have Heldenhammer, Sea Drake, Grimney's Thunder, the orders for the Grand Alliance. And then we have the cards. So I'm just going to show you a couple of them. Like the Submerged card, I talked about it earlier. You replace it with this thing. It kind of goes underwater, then appears in the enemy's face later on. And here is a special status. For example, you can weigh anchor. In other words, you can't be moved or screwed over by the wind, so you can't move at all. On the other end of the card is set ablaze, so you're basically on fire, and that's pretty horrible. You also have the wound markers, because when you board an enemy ship, your captains actually fight. So on the other side you have the wounds. You have flesh wound, you basically get a little bit weaker in your command checks. You might get weaker as a fighter, and you might die. But you gradually becomes worse and worse and worse. But then we have auxiliaries, and these you actually get to have a look at. So here is a Dwarven Dirigible. This is a stat line for this thing. Let's get a good focus here. So you can basically read about it. It has speed 8, which isn't that fast. In other words, if you hit this thing once, it's probably going to explode. And the auxiliaries were the miniships, remember? And let's take another one. Whoops, it's easy. Oh, we pulled the dragon one. As you can see, it has crew and hull, speed and status. So the dragons are actually a bit faster than the most of the ships are. So you can kind of use these sometimes. This one, for example, actually can kill enemies. This one can't. So it's just used for scenarios. And, well, that's basically how the auxiliaries work. Of course there are auxiliaries for the minibows as well, but I'm not going to take a look at those right now. Now for these central ones, damage. Basically, when an enemy fires upon you and you failed your armor save, you can suffer damage. This one, for example, is crew. So now you will lose some crew. And when you run to 0 crew, you basically die. Let's pull another one. Speed. Your the sails have been destroyed, the engine has been damaged, so you get slower. So you gradually get whittled down. This is another crew. Take another one. Crew. There are also special kinds of damage, and here is a hull damage. So you can get a set of fire, your magazine might explode. More hull damage. More crew damage, yeah, I can go on for eternities. But you have lots of fun things in there, and here's the best thing. Fate cards. You pull these each turn, and that kind of determines the randomness of the game. This game is incredibly random. For example, here you get a fire ship which would explode in the face of the enemy. Let's pull another one. Whoopsie-daisy. Leech worm, which brings me to the next point. Sea monsters might appear when you don't want them to through fate cards. And let's see so I don't smash my arm into anything. Good. This is a sea giant. He's like covered in all seaweed and gross stuff. Focus. Or maybe not. Yeah, it doesn't seem to want to focus. Yeah. Those things might appear and attack you whenever you don't want to. This is the leech worm. It's basically a huge worm, in case you couldn't tell by the name. And they attack you. And this is a bone hydra. But some of the ships have special rules that they might evade them or take command of them in case of the Bloody Reaver here. And now for some pictures. In old fashion of me, I forget something. You also get a rulebook, surprise surprise, filled with 12 scenarios, backstories, the rules of course, and all sorts of fun stuff. And of course the scenarios are actually very, very well made and very creative. And this is the back side of the box, front side of the box. Now you know what to look for. So, have a look at some pictures and listen to some good old pirate metal.
Years ago, while lost in barren seas, there whispered murmurs of a bloody mutiny. We took up arms and slayed the officers of rank, and with swords drawn made the captain walk the plank. But as he fell down to the depths, he swore a deadly curse. As sure as hell's my final fate, you'll all soon die or worse. Now as we stand before the gallows waiting for the end, I'll say these final words, my friend. At sunrise we'll all dance a hemp and jig, so raise up your pint of rum and take another swig. The curse of Captain Morgan has led us to this fate, so have no fear and don't look back, the afterlife awaits. We returned to port with sorrow in our chests. An evil shadow followed us on every quest. Never to feel joy again was our fate. Only misery and death, fear and burning hate. We broke the law, betrayed the code, now time is running out. An unforgivable offense, of that there is no doubt. Now as we stand before the gallows waiting for the end, I'll say these final words, my friend. At sunrise we'll all dance a hemp and jig, so raise up your pint of rum and take another swig. The curse of Captain Morgan has led us to this fate, so waiting for our truth calling in hell. But for the lives we leave behind, don't shed a tear, don't cry. The only way to break this curse is for us all to die. Now as we stand before the gallows waiting for the end, I'll say these final words, my